that will convince you that you should give up your view. Because, right, it's your antecedent emotions, feelings, and so on that give the weight to evidence. And they don't say this. So when we see people, for example, who are white supremacists, or people who believe that the earth is flat, and there are both around, I mean, Oliver Goldsmith says, every absurdity has a champion to defend it. And the world shows us that it's right. It's hard to find an absurd view that somebody hasn't turned into a movement, right? So we look at all of these things. It's never about beliefs. It's always about antecedent attitudes or feelings that then give bad weight to evidence as it's presented. They just discount it. Nothing counts as evidence. For example, race is a very shallow notion, that there's more genetic diversity in Africa than there is across the rest of the human species, that the genomes of human beings are not all that different. The white supremacist dismisses all of that as still not establishing. One more example. Hitler thought that there really was an important difference between Aryans and Jews. He thought that Arab Jews all carried some kind of pernicious virus that would destroy Western civilization, and so they had to be exterminated. And he sent all of the best biological scientists in the Third Reich to try to find out what that genetic difference was. And of course, they couldn't find any. They said, well, there's no genetic difference. I mean, that's why we can interbreed with Jews and how there's no difference. And he said, they're so insidious, those Jews, right? They even managed to disguise that difference, right? Right, you can't detect it. That's how good they are at disguising. Well, notice if you think this, right? The other thing is capable of disguising anything. They can simulate anything. Then what you think is, right? What you're thinking is, like the dreaming argument, no evidence could lead me astray. And then you ask, well, why is that? Well, it's not about your belief system. It's about how your background feelings and emotions control your belief system. So that's the idea. So what we're getting is, and I'm going to just give you those thought phrase. An ethics of vision versus an ethics of will. So Kant is like this, and we'll see more, but I'm going to sort of situate so you see where we're going. Now, Kant is like this. He says, it doesn't matter how you see the world. What matters is whether your will is strong enough to uphold the good no matter how you see it. So his thought is, the will comes in as, right, something that you reason out about what to do, and, right, as long as that's strong enough, it doesn't matter what you've done antecedently. It doesn't matter what your feelings are, it doesn't matter what, as long as when the will tells you what to do, you do it, right? So that's the ethics of will. It's about the strength in you that's on the side of the good. And this one, the ethics of vision that you find in Plato and Aristotle is, it's about how you see the world. The good person sees the world in one way, a vicious person sees it in another way. Both can, after that, react completely correctly. One sees the world this way, the other sees it the other way, and as a result, their reactions are quite different. So if you're a racist, for example, and you look at a person of the other race, right, it doesn't matter what they do, right? It doesn't matter if they're really good at mathematics. You pick whichever one. It doesn't matter if they're really hardworking and not lazy. If you pick any element of the stereotype, they don't embody it. Well, what the racist says, so that's just an anomalous case, right? That's not a good example, that's an anomalous case, or, right, that's not really what's going on there, right? Whole set of other attitudes, other things come in to make the evidence not have the weight. Somebody who is racially blind isn't looking for those kinds of things at all. Right? They're not thinking, I should have a different attitude to this person because of their skin color. And then I have to be persuaded that, right, this is a good example of what I take to be a deviant racial group. The racist thinks in those terms, the non-racist doesn't. Same with men and women. Sexism is not about your beliefs directly. It's about how the evidence filters into you, given what your feelings are. There are, of course, cases where somebody thinks, oh no, it's just that I believe this, and they would change their feelings if their beliefs changed. That's possible, but most sexists, racists, and others are not like that. They're people whose beliefs are hostage to their already formed feelings. And so when they're given evidence, the evidence gets distorted by the feeling. So what you want to do is get your eyes right, not your will right. You want to, it's just a different focus of where the action is in ethics. The action is getting your feelings right. So we're going to go back over all this. I just want you to have something in your minds between now and Monday that I'll be talking about. So I want you to imagine your feelings as being like a balance in the laboratory. Right, this is, here's the balance of arm and here's the knife edge. And this is a fair balance. Right, so it's in equilibrium before you put any weights in the pan, right? Okay. Aristotle will say if your feelings, if your state with regard to fear is courage, that's like the following. It's like the equilibrium between the two balance pans when what is being measured is danger. So when you approach the world of danger, will you measure it correctly or not? That depends on, as he puts it, whether or not your feelings are in a mean. This is the famous doctrine of the mean, mostly not very well understood, but this is the view. It's this. If your feelings are like a good laboratory balance, they're not already tilted one way or the other. They're fair. And when danger registers, it tilts the measuring device just the right amount, right? If it's a big danger, it tilts it a lot. If it's a small danger, it tilts it less, right? If it's neutral, it tilts it here, right? So that state in your feelings, which Aristotle says is a mean, he'll elaborate about how it interacts with pleasure and pain. It's a mean, and if your feelings are in that mean, then they respond correctly to the stimuli, the dangers and threat. So let's go back to the eating example. Your appetite for food is in a mean when you, by looking at the world, you measure the attractiveness, the pleasure to be gotten from eating one thing rather than another. And when you measure the pleasure you're going to be getting out of eating it, you measure it correctly, having in mind all the other aspects of eating. Right? So when your feelings are in a mean, you see as most pleasant the thing that is best. And when your feelings are not in a mean, you see something else as more pleasant, so that the best and the pleasant come into conflict. What you want to do is find maximum pleasure in the things that it's best to enjoy and find pleasure in, the things that will promote your happiness. You want to be pleased by the things that will maximally contribute to your happiness, not to be pleased by the things that will in fact undermine your overall happiness. Pleasure will then pull you away from what's really good for you. Okay, so this is the in a mean, and the mean is in, as Aristotle says, feelings and actions. But it's mostly in feelings, which is where he mostly talks about, right? The thought is that if you could get your emotions adjusted correctly, you'd see the world of values correctly, your ends would then be correct, and then the issue would only be to calculate the correct means to the ends. Reason comes in at two places. One, to to get you to, to figure out what the correct ends are. And then emotions are built up to properly respond to the values that are there, so that when you just natively, habitually respond to the world, how you see it is the way it is in terms of real values. You're not misvaluing it. You're not thinking, that's really scary when it isn't. You're not thinking they're enemies when they aren't. You're not thinking, right? Because the feelings that you have color the world correctly in terms of values. They present you, right, by reflecting backwards. So you project on, they reflect back, and you think, oh, this is good, that's bad, this is pleasant, and you're right about all of those things. You're not making judgments in the sense of intellecting and reasoning. You're making emotional responses that are in the correct story. So that's the story that next week, after the break, we're not meeting on Wednesday. On Monday, that's the story we'll pick up.